asked to solve for x, we got a problem because there's an x on this side and an x on this side, and this x is underneath the square root symbol. So the first thing to do is kind of break this out of the square root symbol, and we need to check to make sure that on this side of the equation, there's nothing outside the root symbol, and there's not. So we can go ahead and square both sides first. The opposite of square rooting is squaring. So I'll square this side, and I'll square this side. This square and square root cancel, leaving an x plus 6 on the left side, and then this becomes x squared. Now, we're actually not even using PEMDAS in reverse this time because this is a quadratic, and I know that because I've got an x squared term and an x term and a constant, and the way we tackle these is to get one side equal to 0. It's better to leave the x squared term positive, so even though it's a little bit more work, I'm going to subtract x and 6 from both sides to give me 0 equals x squared minus x minus 6. Now we're going to try and factor this thing out. So I'm trying to think of two values I can multiply together to get x squared. Well, that's x and x. And then I want to find two things that multiply to give me a negative 6, but I want to make it so that the inner and outer terms combine to make negative 1. So 3 and 2 seem like a pretty good choice. And if the 3 is negative and the 2 is positive, these guys will multiply to make negative 6, and then a negative 3x could combine with a positive 2x to make a negative x. That's going to equal 0. Now we'll set each part of this. Each factor will be set equal to 0. If I add 3 to both sides over here, x equals 3. If I subtract 2, x equals negative 2. So these are my answers. Or are they? We have to check and see if they actually work. So if I go back to my original equation and I plug in 3, I get the square root of 3 plus 6, and that should equal 3. And this becomes 3 plus 6 is 9, so it becomes the square root of 9. That should equal 3, and it does. So that one's good. Then we try the same thing, but we're going to go with the negative 2. So that's going to look like, I don't really have room to do this, so I'm going to do this in this little box right here. So if I take the square root of negative 2 plus 6, that should equal negative 2. And negative 2 plus 6 is 4, which should equal negative 2. And I get the square root of 4, which is 2, equals negative 2. But that's not true. So that's not true. This is my only answer.